Oh, we're recording. Sorry. I was like waiting for the waiting for the
Oh, did you
countdown.
want more thinking time?
No, I need my countdown. Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Off-Script Physio podcast. Today, we're having a conversation with Eric. Man, we're talking so many different things. Uncomfortable conversations is at the forefront. So it wasn't an uncomfortable podcast at all, but such a phenomenal opportunity to get an insight into somebody that's talking about things that we probably don't talk about every day. So I'm Bowie. This is Kaz. Super excited to get in it with Eric. Let's get going.
So, hello, Eric. Look, if you've got a 10-page script on your desk there, I want you to throw that away. Welcome to Off-Script Physio. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Karen. I'm doing well, Ben. Thank you very much for having me. I'm
Thanks
excited
so
to
much
be
for
here.
coming.
Awesome.
Amazing.
So, give us a bit of context just to set the scene of where are you now physically? Where are you from? So that our listeners are aware of the origin story, and tell us just a little bit of context about what you do in the world of physio.
Absolutely. So I'm currently in Perth, Western Australia. I'm originally from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So this little city, the furthest south you can go, bordering with Detroit, Michigan in the US. I did my degree at the University of Melbourne. So that's what brought me over to Australia. I met my now wife. So I'm staying here permanently. And what I do in physiotherapy, that is the $1 million question. I help men of all ages with their erectile dysfunction and urinary incontinence. So post prostate removal, pre prostate removal, you name it, men's health, that's my jam.
Awesome. So amazing.
That is really cool. And we usually start with the physio journey, like what got you into physio. But I actually want to know, with all that you've achieved, what kind of kid were you at school, Eric?
Yeah, that's a good question. This is probably one for my parents because I think I think I was a little walking tornado, to be honest with you. But my parents were always super encouraging. I was always very entrepreneurial. So I was the one going out and cutting everyone's lawns. In the winter, I would gather all my friends together and we would go shovel everyone's driveway for $20 a driveway, which actually looking back, that was really good money. Um, I had a car detailing business. So I was always very focused on business and trying to make a little bit of extra pocket money. Always been extremely curious. And I think I was one of the fortunate ones in terms of I knew what I wanted to do. So my dad was really sick when I was in year 8. So he needed a liver transplant and he spent 82 consecutive days in the hospital. So I got to watch the in-home physiotherapist essentially teach him how to walk again after the post liver transplant. And that's kind of when it sparked in my mind that I would like to have an impact, hopefully the same impact or a similar one that those in-home physios had on me and my family, and essentially getting my dad back up to working function again. That's kind of when that penny dropped for me, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And that's also where my struggle started because I wasn't the most academically inclined student, to put it lightly. So I really had to, and that's actually one of the reasons why I ended up in Australia. I didn't think I was going to get into Canada. So Canada's pretty competitive. I never applied, so I don't know for sure. But I'm willing to bet I wasn't going to get into any schools. So that's when I applied to Australia.
Well, that fits completely. That just makes me so happy. The story about you growing up and what you were like. You were always entrepreneurial, but I think in there also always wanting to help. So by doing those jobs, you were always helping out with people. So that fits.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, look, I'm just kind of I'm mildly speechless at the moment, and this is not something that's normal for me, because I'm a talker. But you're
Can confirm.
yeah. I just could sit here and listen to all your entire story. You can just see your passion around it, and just like the focus you have for doing things. It's really amazing. So my question is, you've come to Australia, you've done your masters. What's the next step? Where did you go after this, and how did you go from that masters towards the direction you are now?
Well, it's a really good question because that's actually where my journey started. So the plan was always to get my degree in Australia and then to head back. And trust me, I think my parents are still very bitter that I'm not back in Ontario, but that's another conversation. I'm just kidding. They've been out plenty of times. But when I finished my degree, my goal immediately became how do I figure out a career path for me where I can go between both countries. Because as we know, in the traditional sense, to be a physiotherapist, you typically have to be pretty hands-on. Miss Karen Finnan here is definitely the pioneer of telehealth physiotherapy. And Karen, you were a massive inspiration to me. So when I graduated, Ben, there was a colleague of mine and a friend of mine that I studied with. We started a business called Age Strong Collective, ASC for short. And essentially, it was this men's health library trying to get men to take better care of their health from both a physical standpoint and mental health standpoint as well. It didn't do very well. That was my first real entrepreneurial venture where I invested some money and very quickly lost it. Shout out to my parents and my uncles because they were literally the only ones that supported it. So I've been stuck on men's health from the beginning, and then I pivoted with another friend, and we started what we called online prostate physiotherapy. What we noticed is when we were going through our graduate degree, a lot of our friends wanted to be the classic, sports physiotherapist, go work with an AFL team here in Australia, um, and all that. And we quickly realized that it was actually quite a pretty small market, and our chances of doing that and also having that workplace freedom that I was looking for was pretty slim. So we started online prostate physiotherapy after a lot of inspiration from you, Karen. So again, I know I'm pumping your tires, but thank you. Because once someone shows you that it's possible that you can treat someone and make a significant difference in their lives online, it's a massive shift in your perspective on the field of physiotherapy. So we started that, and we really quickly ran into a roadblock of we couldn't get any urologists or GPs to refer us any patients. What we found was they typically have their set up referral pathways with brick and mortar locations, and this was going to be a lot bigger of a hurdle than we initially had thought. I want to say I probably called maybe 150 GP and urology offices between my friend Travis and I. We made custom videos for them that would open automatically when the email would arrive. So we would make them personalized. We just didn't get anywhere. So that pretty quickly failed. But I've always been passionate about men's health. I watched my dad struggle. And then, if I'm being completely transparent, I struggled as well. I don't know if this is just an audio or a video recording, but I am currently bald. That was not a choice. That
We've
was
got the
not a
video
choice.
going too for
Oh,
our
perfect.
friends on
Everyone can see
YouTube.
my beautiful forehead. So I lost my hair during my physiotherapy program, and I know people have it much worse. I'm not complaining. Thankfully, I have a reasonably shaped head. But I also struggled with some erectile dysfunction myself, stress related. And when this is what you want to do for a living, and all of a sudden you become a patient of this issue, it's a pretty big eye opening experience. So anyway, I'm here on this journey of trying to find a way to work online so I can go back and see my family whenever I wanted. Because my first clinical job out of university, they made it pretty clear that I was lowest on the totem pole and that I wasn't very likely to get Christmas off to go see my folks back in Canada. So anyway, that just sparked my internal fire a little bit more. And I figured, you know what? Why don't I just go direct to people online? Because if I'm struggling with these things, if I've seen my dad struggle with these things, these issues in silence, well, why don't I just start by being a really good storyteller and maybe people will find that interesting and maybe people will see value in that. So I think that was a really
Um,
long-winded way of answering your
no.
question, Ben, but that's how I got from graduation to here, now earning a living and helping people online from really anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Could you share with us that platform that you then turned to start
Yes,
telling your story, and how many people you have following you there, just to set a little bit of context?
sure. I started posting I proposed to take us back a little bit further. I proposed to my now wife, and the day after, we're walking on the beach, and I don't know why I just had this different perspective on life of her name's Sel. I told Sel, I'm like, listen, I want to run something by you, but I think I want to start posting YouTube videos, but not just your normal like rehab, very physio dominant videos. I want to share a little bit about my story. And obviously, you're a part of that. Is that something you would be okay with me doing? And she's always been my biggest supporter. And she said, I think you should go for it. I think there's a lot of guys out there on YouTube that would would get a lot of value from hearing your story and everything that maybe you have to share. I wanted to go to YouTube because what I realized is that my demographic, when I was working out like my archetype, where what that means is essentially is the typical age of my viewer, what their problem and pain points are. I started building this model around who I was going to be speaking to on YouTube. They're all going to be over the age of 40 or so, I thought. Um, so I figured, well, what's the largest search engine? It's Google, and Google owns YouTube. And I know if there's anything around the house that I need to do, if I'm Googling it, something's going to pop up on YouTube. So, and I would much rather just watch a video. So I started putting two and two together. And again, at the beginning, I didn't know if this was going to work. I've never even filmed a video. So it was, yeah, I was dreaming pretty big, but I figured guys that have issues in the bedroom or issues in the bathroom, surely they would want to watch something in the comfort of their own home and in private, maybe before going and acting on it. Because I know for me, I would. So yeah, I picked up my iPhone at the time. I scripted out a video. The first video that I launched was 3 years ago. It's very cringeworthy. I didn't have a working microphone. It was very, very low production value. And I made the video, I wrote it down so I would remember. It was how to empty your bladder. And before I released the video, I was thinking to myself, like, no one is gonna watch this. Like for us guys and women, you pee the same way that you've always peed your whole life. But anyway, I launched that. I got no views. But I told my wife that I'm going to do one video a week. So that's what I did. And I slowly continued posting. I purchased a bunch of YouTube starter courses from people that I enjoyed watching. So they would teach script writing, they would teach pacing, hooks, how to make the thumbnail images that you see when you go on YouTube. I was all in. I really wanted to make this work. And then a year later, so I kept doing it. I was getting some views, mostly from my parents and my family, my dad sharing the video around at work. Thank you, Dad. And then a year later, I decided to revisit that topic. I'm like, you know what? Now that I've got the proper setup, I'm going to invest even more in this. So I made another bladder emptying video and it went to the moon. I think in the first week, it got 500,000 views. It's now sitting around 2.2 million views. And to answer the last part of your question, Karen, I now have 400. I should check. I should check. I don't want to say the wrong number. I think it's 452,000 subscribers on YouTube at the time of filming.
Wow.
Which is
Wow.
absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's obviously a testament to your strategy, which was to first work out what sort of lifestyle you wanted with your career. Second, to try a few iterations of what gets traction. And then sounded like when you got extremely clear on your target audience and exactly who you wanted to help, where they were hanging out, and what questions they were asking, that eventually ended up being an amazing formula. So
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah. Thank you. And one other thing I'll add is I was listening to your intro episode with you and Ben, and one of the things that really stood out to me was, I think, to use your words, one of the inspirations behind starting this podcast was to hear other clinicians' stories. And Ben, I think it was you that said, going beyond what that education is to the patient, because at the end of the day, it's what your viewer, your patient, your client, whoever walks away understanding. And I think when you're in, Karen, you mentioned this in the episode, when you're in university, it can be really intimidating for a physiotherapist because I know for me, I never felt like I knew enough. I came from Canada. I felt very behind the eight ball with my anatomy knowledge. And it was throwing myself into the deep end, new country, didn't know a soul, felt very behind in the anatomy lectures. The Australian accent was really throwing me off. So I found it really hard to concentrate. It's an amazing accent. But it just wasn't something I was used to hearing, combined with lecture material that I just wasn't super familiar with. It became really challenging. And I found my ego was really starting to get involved as well. I want to be the most knowledgeable physio. Yes, you need to know what you're doing and you need to have that skill set to be able to make a meaningful difference in someone's life and meaningful change. That's what they're there to see you. But I think when you focus on the client, the patient, the viewer, from their point of view and put it into really simple language and relate to them, that's what really spoke to me. Nothing else matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Nothing. And that's how
Yeah.
I try to lead with these videos of just really resonating with these guys. Like, yeah, it's embarrassing. No one wants to have an accident when they're out in public, but this is what we can do about it. I have videos where I put water on my boxers and the intro is me walking out. I've had a video where I share my story going through erectile dysfunction with my now wife, and it was incredibly embarrassing. Me losing my hair, and I think that's given me a really good gateway to kind of take myself off that pedestal of I went to school for 7 years. I know so much more than you. To hey, I'm just another guy that can relate, but I also happen to have some solutions that might be able to help you as well. I
Yeah.
found that's really helped.
I love it. Eric, it's so nice to listen to talk, because as you know, when we're talking about like our purpose and our drive behind this podcast is to kind of talk to clinicians with this passion and really kind of dive deep into the kind of whys and the drivers. And I think it's important because it's very easy to get stuck in that level of perfectionism and LinkedIn and Instagram and all these things of like you got to be the best, you got to all those things. And when we take a step back and remember that we're all healthcare providers and our job is to care for patients. And when I listen to somebody that is doing that and living that so well, it's just such a nice reminder of what we do and why we do it. So thank you. Now, from that, I have a particular question. You've mentioned a few times already that you started something and then failed it, and then started something and then failed it. How have you managed going through it? It's particularly in physiotherapy is not necessarily what people would typically see as an entrepreneurial profession. You get your physio degree, you become a physio. So firstly, it's, difficult to branch out, but how did you go kind of going through these experiences and then experiencing failure? How did you pick yourself back up? Did it sway you from continually trying? How do you manage those things?
It's a really great question, and I appreciate you asking because I'm hoping that when I share this story, a lot of people listening can relate because it's a really daunting experience. And I found for me and myself that fear of embarrassing myself and the fear of failing in public was almost like a freezing moment. And I think for a lot of us watching, I think people can really resonate with that too, Ben. Of I don't want to look silly in public. I don't want to look silly to my peers. Certainly don't want to look silly on social media. So when I failed the first couple times, yeah, it stung because I lost money. And for those that don't know, coming from another country to Australia, you are on a full fee schedule. That is multiple six figures to study. I do not come from a wealthy family. So I had every line of credit, every bank in my city loaning me money and my parents co-signing. So bless them. Thank you, mom, dad, to make this dream work. So to answer your question, I backed myself into such a deep corner. My parents came for my graduation. And I remember shortly after my mom had a conversation with me and it went something along the lines of, Eric, do you want to know how much debt you're in? Because when I came over at 21, I was like, yeah, you know what? That's future Eric's problem. Let me just worry about that. Mom, I don't need to know. I'm going to get a job when I'm there. So I was doing footy training and whatnot. So she told me it was multiple six figures. My heart sank because I knew what my starting salary was going to be. My loans were in Canadian dollars. So now and at that time, the Australian dollar was worth a bit less. So I was paying extra. And I had, I think, five separate loans. And yeah, it was a pretty paralyzing moment. So Ben, I didn't have a choice. I knew I didn't. I wanted to get married. I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to have all the things I've always dreamt of having when I was growing up and being a little entrepreneurial Eric. So I quite literally backed myself into a corner where there was no other option. I knew that I was going to continue trying things until it worked. So ASC, H Strong Collective, that was a bit of a gut punch, but I learned so much from it. I learned how to build a website. I wasn't coding. It was a lot of back end, drag and drop, but connecting different online payment portals, learning digital marketing, email marketing, social media. Because keep in mind, for me, I did a 4 year undergrad. I moved here to Australia and I did a 3 year program in physiotherapy. I was quote unquote an expert in one thing. I didn't even have any hobbies. I was just set on making money and paying this loan back. So when the first business failed, it was a bit of a gut punch, but I knew I had learned so much and I knew I was on the right track. I knew that I was in the right area of men's health because no one was really focusing in it at that time anyway. So then when my friend Travis and I, when we started online prostate physiotherapy, we did get a little bit of traction. It just wasn't enough and it wasn't sustainable. We just didn't know enough at that stage, but we had started meeting people. We met Karen. Karen, you very graciously invited us to be on the telehealth advisory board with the APA during COVID when a lot of practices had to go digital. But when we realized that we couldn't scale it, it was that pivot where I had to really look inward and say, there's no other option for me here. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this degree, literally. I need to make this work for me. I need this investment to pay off. I've got a lot riding on this. So what do I have to lose? And it was kind of that inflection point of, yeah, I think I need to share some of my own story. Everyone wanted, I'm going to be the best sports physiotherapist. No, I'm going to be the best. And yeah, I fell into that trap because I just never felt good enough. And I was really, really worried about putting my story out there because of what they might think. I wasn't worried about what my parents would think. I knew that they were always going to support me no matter what. But it was failing and maybe looking silly in front of my peers that like really had that knot twisted in my stomach. And then I remember one day, I've always loved the personal development books and podcasts, and I was listening to something, and it was quite moving for me. Essentially, the premise was if the people that you're worried about embarrassing yourself in front of, if they're not your customer, if they're not going to be buying from you or engaging with your services, why do you care? They're not thinking of you. And they said it a lot more eloquently than that. But that was the moment where I'm like, you know what? F it. I'm just going to put this out there, whatever. And I'm so glad that I did. But pressing publish on that video where I'm sharing my own journey, I think at that time I was like 26 with my erections not working, even sharing it with you guys here today. It's not the most comfortable thing. I just talk about it every day. That was really, really hard and just waiting to see what the reaction was. But that was the catalyst of not caring what anyone else thought. No one else is paying my loan repayments for me. No one's coming to help me. And if physiotherapy, if the field's not willing to change yet, well, I'm going to be one of the ones alongside Karen to kind of to kick this door in and to find a way. So yeah, I backed myself into such a deep corner, and I still feel that today. And moving to Australia and getting in that much debt has been the best thing to ever happen to me. And I'm very, very proud to say that I'm almost done paying that off. It's been my sole focus. And I would do it again. I would do it again.
I'm so impressed. And I think when I listen to that hugely interesting story, what I pull out of it is success came as an endpoint when you went through three, I suppose, realities. The first, truth. What is the debt that I'm in? And hats off to Eric's mum and dad. They sound amazing. And your
They
mum
are.
saying you need to know your reality. So truth, owning your truth. The next was sitting in humbleness. So rather than using excuses for why businesses didn't work, you said, it didn't work. I need to learn from it. And you damn well did. And then the third phase you went through was vulnerability. And it seemed that that was such a turning point for you, that when you were willing to do what you were asking of your target audience, that's when something really clicked. I get goosebumps right now, even just talking about it, because it's completely what Bowie and I stand for. And it is just, it is so amazing to see that journey and how you've gone through it. So I'd like to just sit in the discomfort of uncomfortable conversations. So now you make a living out of facilitating these uncomfortable conversations for others. What have you learned? Because, there may be physios listening who have different versions of uncomfortable conversations they have to have with patients and that sort of thing. What have you learned from that? What helps you with that? And what helps the people that you're helping?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned at the end of the day is that we're all human beings. If someone is going to see a physiotherapist, they just want to get better. And it's a lot easier to get better and it's a lot more fun if you're being led by a friend and it costs you nothing. They don't care how much no in my I'll preface this is in my experience. I don't want to trigger anyone. They don't care how knowledgeable you are, you ringing off medical jargon and terminology that they might not understand. It's so much easier to build that connection in that relationship when you can level with them as a human being. If you can add some of your backstory in. So I've always just started with, hey, let me just be a friend and let's try to make a friend and see if I can help. And I think in the men's health space and women's health space as well, it's a very, very intimate niche where you have to lead with a lot of compassion. These are very, very strong pain points. And even and I graduated in 2018, so I'm not sure if it's changed. I'm sure it has. But men and women's health was barely touched on. Men's health, not at all. Not at all. It was women's health for good reasons. And I hope it's changed a little bit. And that's the difference I'm trying to make as well. But I think when you're dealing with these really sensitive pain points in people's lives, you have to meet that with compassion. They don't care about hearing medical terminology. They don't want to hear some advanced plan of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. You're going to lose them, in my experience. It's joining them on the journey. And I know selling's like this R-rated word in our industry, but it's really selling the outcome and the emotions of, hey, I'm here with you. I'm joining you side by side, and we're going to figure this out together because this is having a massive impact on your life and your relationships. And enough's enough. Let me help you. And I'm going to do everything that I can to coordinate care and point you in the right direction and hopefully get you some really meaningful results. And it's joining them in that because for a lot of guys that I see, it's tricky because I was going to say I'm young. I'm 31. I guess I am young, but my demographic, a lot of them are over the age of 60. So when I was making that first, what does my client look like? That photo, I was right. So they're a little bit older in life. When someone's struggling with their erections, if they're married, the marriage is taking the toll. It's driving a wedge. The person's confidence is just shot. So you really need to come in and level with them in a human way. And I've learned so much about myself, and I've learned a lot of empathy through sharing my own experience and being able to relate, not comparing, but relating. And in my niche of men's health, I found that when guys come together and speak about issues, and Karen, you might be able to shed some light on this. And Ben, I want your opinion too. For us guys, like our dad's age and our uncle's age, they don't go around talking like, hey, you know what? I can't keep my erection hard. Oh, I lost it again last night. The missus is really upset. It's not normal conversation unless alcohol is involved. Women, I think, in my opinion, are probably a little bit more open to being, hey, this is what's going on with my health. This is what I'm struggling with. Hope I'm not generalizing here. But what I found with my group is when you can remove ego from that, when they don't feel judged for maybe watching pornography or how many times they're self-pleasuring a week, or the massive wedge this is driving in their relationships, so many amazing things happen because guys are just not having enough of these conversations. And I've learned so much through just sitting that with them. A lot of them have been divorced. A lot of them are on the road to divorce if they don't get this problem fixed. At times, I don't feel like I'm quite equipped, and that's why my professional development is continuing in terms of dealing with these really difficult conversations. But it's an absolute privilege because I'd much rather they have that conversation with me rather than not have that conversation at all. And if that conversation was inspired by some YouTube video that I made, like what an absolute privilege because there's no geographical barriers. I'm talking with people in the UK. I have people in Dubai, Canada, the US, every state in the US. Australian, you name it. It's not a country specific problem with men's health in these difficult conversations. So anyway, I think I'm getting sidetracked, but you learn a lot
Right.
through those difficult chats. And I've really been able to grow, I think, just as a person. And I think I might actually take away more than they do from them.
I just love hearing this because there's so many little facets to what you just said. I really want to dive into Therapeutic Alliance because it sounds like you've got, very strong passion about connecting with the patients. But a little back step. with uncomfortable conversations. So I work in the emergency department. I have these conversations with the people about erectile function, particularly around cauda equina syndrome and those types of things. And I do agree with you that there just tends to be an affront with men. Is, I'll bring up something like, oh, have you had any erectile dysfunction or issues with an erection? And the immediate response is no. And then sometimes like no, not really. And then I'm like, okay, well, we have to kind of unpack a no, not really. But there is this hesitancy. We're on the precipice of men wanting to be more vulnerable and have more of these conversations and open up about things. But I think it's still a very difficult thing to experience. I feel like you are leading the way in this field. So on behalf of physios everywhere and healthcare professionals, thank you for stepping into the uncomfortableness and uncertainty of these things. There'll be many younger physios that are like, I would like to get better at this. How do we get better at an uncomfortable conversation?
It's a really good question. Karen, when you asked me the question of like what I was like as a kid, I was the one talking everyone's ear off. My parents tell me I asked a million questions and they answered every single one of them. I'm the firstborn out of three. So Ben, I think how I answer that question is we need to start having those conversations with ourselves and with our friends and our family. Because how can we expect to have it with a stranger and seem genuine if that's the first time that we're actually having that conversation? And maybe recognizing the bias that we have and being uncomfortable with ourselves and talking about that with friends. Because we don't need to get into it now, but all of us on this call right now, when we're dealing with intimacy, we've all had quote unquote setbacks or failures. It's not going to go perfect every time you are intimate with a partner. It's a numbers game. It's a fact. But we rarely talk about that. So if you have a close group of friends, I know this might sound wild, but it's starting that conversation like, hey, have any of you guys struggled with this? Like I can get an erection, but sometimes I lose it. How much adult content are you guys watching per week? Is this normal? And it's starting those conversations and they're going to be so uncomfortable and very strange at first. But I think before you go and put yourself out there, I think you need to open yourself up, in my opinion, to look inward. We can get into all the societal norms, but like I know for me, if I'm being like super honest, which I try to be, adult content was a really big problem for me. I grew up, and I'm not blaming anyone. I'm taking responsibility for it, but no one told me it was bad. And I think when you take a young boy and you see that stuff online, so I'm 31, I grew up in this internet age. Um, when you first see it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. Went to a Catholic school, barely got taught sex ed. It's not my parents' fault, but we never just really had that conversation. So anyway, I took it too far. And I didn't realize it was a problem until it became a problem with my marriage. And then to dig even deeper, when I'm having these conversations with guys, I'm realizing that it's a big problem for a lot of men. And all of a sudden, I started getting a lot of people booking in for calls with me that were under the age of 21. And a big part, an influencing factor was their pornography use. And it's this taboo topic and it's uncomfortable topic talking about it right now. But I know there's a lot of people that can relate. There's a lot of shame around it. So I think by having these conversations on a podcast with your friends, with yourself, that's what opens up that comfortability to, you know what, I can level with someone. Maybe I'll share about me first, because that's another point. As practitioners, we're very rarely sharing anything about us. How often, unless your GP is a friend, how often do you walk out of that appointment being like, oh, I know about everything about my GP? No, it's typically they're on a pedestal. And it's the same for us. And I think we need to recognize that. And there is that bit of a hierarchy, whether we like it or not. So I try to lead with, hey, I've also struggled with this. I'm not ashamed. I don't think I'm being unprofessional by sharing it. It's just to set the stage that there's no shame here. And we're going to get a lot further together if we can just cut down these walls and just talk human to human. So it's been a lot of inward reflection, Ben. It's been a lot of me going through my own struggles as well, being on my own over here and being met with a lot of failure, a lot of debt, a lot of men's health problems. I think that's kind of combined into me being more comfortable. But for anyone listening, I think it's maybe opening up that dialogue with friends first if this is something that you wanted to get into, because the results are the proof's there. You're
Mhm.
just going to be so much more relatable, and you're going to be a lot more comfortable having these conversations.
Shame is a particular conversation, is a particular word and feeling that I think is so important to discuss. People can have shame for a lot of different reasons, but particularly porn and sexual health has a huge stigma about it. We talk about drug addictions and alcoholic addictions, and that's somewhat normalized now with
Yeah.
conversations. But a porn addiction is people feel really uncomfortable having a conversation about that. Well, especially as healthcare professionals, I think we need to try and become more comfortable in the uncomfortable conversations, because otherwise, how is our patient supposed to be comfortable with talking and talk to us about it? So I think it's a really important moment and have a conversation. As you said, I don't think it's a matter of saying you're a physio today. Okay, great, go in on Monday and start just blurting things out,
No.
or maybe do with a little bit with the right people. But I think just the practicing. And I found personally when I started to have conversations, and even in the ED, asking patients about wee and poo, right? It feels like saying, "Are you weeing like normal for you? Is this different?" And again, if we use something like, "Is your bladder and bowel function okay? And do you have any numbness in your saddle area?" Patients don't really know what that is. And then we're more likely just to say, "Yeah, no, it's normal," and we're not doing them a service, and we're also just being surface level with how we're touching on these topics. So I think it's really important to go deeper. One of the things that I did early on to practice my uncomfortable conversations is I just had conversations in the mirror, just verbalizing it and just talking and just practicing saying things out loud and being like, "Man, I look so awkward. Like I'm holding my arm. Like how do I just relax and just say it again and again and again until I now think it's the thing that's highly valuable." And we go back to your therapeutic alliance conversation here is when you become comfortable with it, you can remove judgment out of your voice towards the patient, which in itself is such a strong intervention to normalize and to be there, therapeutically for them. So I think just the way in which you can deliver that service, all of a sudden, you might be the first person they really have opened up to about this. And then that opens up the floodgates as physios to start going, well, let's start looking forward and how can we do this journey together? So yes.
I agree. And to interject a little bit too. So one part of my business model is I'll offer free 15-minute Zoom calls. So we just go over a basic, hey, what's going on? Um, what do you need help with? What are your goals? And I offer them to everyone. It's in every link in every one of my YouTube videos. I have a lot of them. And I can't tell you how many times men across the world say to me, I've never spoken about these things in my life. And I also hear this is the craziest thing I've ever done. I met you from YouTube, and now I'm talking to you about my erections. And anyone listening to me like, yeah, that is cringe. But if we can get past the cringe part, I always focus on, okay, at bare minimum, just want them leaving feeling like there is hope because it becomes such a dark spiral. And I call it going down the rabbit hole approach. You end up watching all these videos, you end up on Reddit. Oh my gosh, I'm doomed. You start diagnosing yourself and you end up just spiking your cortisol response even more. And the effects of cortisol on your blood flow and on your pelvic floor tensing up, you're making the problem worse. So by just leveling with someone and say, hey, you're not broken. This is what we can do to help. It's been and leveling with them in an empathetic way and maybe sharing some of your own story to make them feel more comfortable. I think to maybe credit myself, I've become very good at making friends in 15 minutes. And and that's probably what I'm the most proud of because I don't care if you don't buy anything from me. It doesn't matter. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel. Thank you. I genuinely appreciate that. I just want to leave you in a better place. And I can say that genuinely because I have so many different income streams surrounding that. So that's a genuine statement. I don't care if you don't buy anything. I just want you to leave feeling better. And that's been a really big privilege.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I think it is worth circling back now to bring in what you touched on before, which is how is that experience of sharing those conversations difficult, perhaps with females and girlfriends versus
Yeah.
males? We know there's a big difference in the amount. I think it can improve all round, but I think it is more intuitive in the way that girls communicate, women communicate, that there is a little bit more openness there. But I think it's just incredible advice at the end of the day. The tips and tricks to uncomfortable conversations, what it shows is that if the asker is really invested and comfortable with the content matter, that is absolutely what facilitates or can touch on a really genuine response. So you talked a bit about these 15-minute consultations, the income streams. What does your average week look like these days, Eric?
The average week. So I'll walk you through it. So the average week, I'm putting out 2 YouTube videos a week. So I've got a whiteboard to my left where I have 150 script ideas. Um, and I've got a way that I go through. And essentially what I do is I have free lead magnets, which means, for example, in the Kegel space, so pelvic floor strengthening exercise space, a lot of guys really struggle on what to feel, where to feel, and how to make sure they're doing it correctly. So I put together a guide that tells them step by step, this is how you feel the contraction. This is where you put your fingers, I call it the 2-finger salute, over the perineum. And to go back to the plain language, I'd say the taint or the gooch, because no one knows what the perineum is. So you'll lose them. So anyway, how my business model runs is I offer these free lead magnets. Now, every one of the script ideas, I'm looking on my whiteboard, I've color coded it. I've got 5 free lead magnets. So I've got a pelvic floor stretching routine. I've got a how to feel Kegel's contraction guide. I've got a prostate relief checklist. I've got a core workout, and I can't read the other one. So anyway, I assign a lead magnet to each video because it's really difficult to sell a product to someone when that might be their first video that they're watching me on YouTube. So if at the end of the video, I can say, hey, Karen, hey, Ben, if you guys found value in that video, I've created a free guide that's going to teach you exactly how to feel a Kegel's contraction so you can be confident doing it on your own at home. The link is below. It's free. Just tell me your best email address and I'll send it your way. That's how I collect email addresses. So now they have to, select that they want to subscribe to my list and then they get that free product. Well, I then deliver twice weekly email newsletters where I'm selling my digital products. So I have a 21-day Kegels for Men challenge where for 21 days straight, it's a drip-fed course. I hate the word course. Didn't want to be a physio that has a course, but it's a course. It's a 21-day program, maybe is a nicer way of putting it, where I'm taking you through a very gradually progressed Kegel exercise program that starts with pelvic floor stretching first, and then Kegels at the end. It's 7 minutes a day, 21 days straight. And in the course platform, they also get to ask me questions. I have technique videos, etc. I sell that from my email list because once someone's on my email list, they're now what I call a warm lead. So after they download the free email lead magnet, the guide for free, it triggers a 21-day email automation where I am now automatically sending you 1 email a day. That's a paragraph, short and sweet, heavy hitting, really valuable tip. And then in the PS line, I'd say, hey, if you love this, you should jump into the challenge. Here's a discount code. We cover all this and more. So 21 days, bang, 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 bang. You're getting an automatic email from me. So I make money YouTube puts ads on my videos, those annoying ads that show up that you can skip. I get a percentage of that. I also get brands that sponsor videos. So I have to be very careful, making sure that 1, they're relevant, and 2, that they're safe, and they're TGA certified and all that fun stuff. So that's quite lucrative. I make the majority of my income from those digital products. So my 21-day Kegels for Men challenge, I've got an erectile dysfunction short course. I am just getting ready to launch a 21-day prostate relief challenge because what I've learned from my email lead magnets is out of the 5 that I offer, I think it's like 95% download the prostate relief checklist. That's given me a lot of data and insight to what my demographic wants. Because keep in mind, I'm making videos on fixing and treating the symptoms, how to empty your bladder in 3 steps, how to get rid of the urine dribble post-pee, But the overarching theme for a lot of these men is going to be BPH, so benign prostatic hyperplasia, and enlarged prostate, the same thing. So that's giving me a lot of data. So that's guided where I'm investing my time into making deep, deep dive products that are affordable. So my challenges are $69. And then my, again, not a great term, but my higher ticket offering is I offer one-to-one coaching. We need to be very careful because physio is a protected title, meaning that I'm only licensed to treat people in Australia. I don't want to say I've gotten around this, but I offer a coaching model. So I'm not making any diagnosis. And in my consent form, the clients have to be in regular contact with either their urologist or their GP. So we get that signed off. So I'm not reinventing the wheel, and I focus heavily on lifestyle, sleep, stress management, intimacy routines, specifically surrounding the pelvic floor, so staying within scope, diet, hydration, and exercise, pelvic floor strengthening, and just generally getting a little bit fitter. So I take on 4 clients a month. That's definitely my highest tier pricing offer, but I also offer 1-hour coaching calls as well. So for guys that are just looking for maybe a touch-up plan, just a general holistic program to start off with a little bit less of an upfront buy-in. So I do that. Karen, I know I'm all over the place here, but
This is
That's great.
but the architecture makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I can go into like a business deep dive and I could probably talk to you for days on it. I'm super passionate about that because that's how I earn my
Let's
money.
get you back for another episode.
Yeah.
Why not?
Talk business.
Here's the thing. You know what drives me crazy is I don't like gatekeepers. I don't like people that, and Karen, that's something I really, really appreciate and respect about you. And I wanted to tell you in person to give you your flowers, is you've always been incredibly helpful and you've always led by giving first. And that is something that I've noticed from day one and I appreciate it by you. And I can see Ben nodding his head
Yep.
as well. So
Yep.
I know it's a common theme and you've inspired me to do the same. So I'm happy to lay out everything that I do. And actually, if you're online oriented, I've definitely just given you an amazing playbook with my email automation. I think that is genius if I'm going to pump my own tires. But I could talk about that for days because I think for physios coming out of school, for I'll talk about me. I didn't know anything else. Finances, accounting, paying back debt. I'm like, oh my gosh, learning how to start an email newsletter, learning how to edit a video, film a video, script a video, post a video. How do I automate emails? What payment processor do I use? It's such a steep learning curve. And I'm a big believer that there's enough food for everyone. There's enough niches for everyone. And I think how we continue to progress this field and where I'm so passionate about is we just need to be helping each other. And you can expand your horizons and scope from being, I am the best physiotherapist in Moonee Ponds, Melbourne, to, hey, I consider myself well known. There's no geographical barriers. I'm helping millions of people. My some of the videos get multiple millions, and I'm providing help in that. But I'm also helping colleagues as well get started. I'm pretty passionate about that, so I'm happy to share anything.
Yeah. Look, there's one more question I just really want to touch on. And it's
Ben,
one that
ask me anything.
Oh, I love that. So this is a question that comes up. Karen and I have talked about a lot. One of the aspects of looking at a physio's journey from when they started to where you are now and kind of thriving in your area. Along the way, sometimes we feel like we have had moments of failure or imposter syndrome. And it's just something that I really love to bring out because especially younger physios look at people like yourself and it's inspiring and they're like, how do I get to that at that stage? And when internally sometimes it can be challenged when you feel like you're not educated enough or you haven't done enough courses or you just need to spend more money on PD and all these types of things. Can you just talk to like the journey and if you've experienced those moments and how you've kind of worked through those moments?
Every day, Ben. I've been through a lot. If I had any more hair to lose, I would have lost it by now. So I'm happy you asked this question because I definitely don't want to be giving this glamorized, oh my gosh, he has it so great. Yes, I'm living my dream life, but one of the sayings I really like is choose your hard. Whatever you do is going to be hard. Working for someone is difficult. Working for a big organization like a hospital is hard. Working for yourself is hard. None of it's easy. I've been tried and tested a lot. This has probably been the hardest year of my life. But I'm going to generalize here. When I moved to Australia, so I hope I don't offend you guys. I feel like Australia has a big problem, and you call it tall poppy syndrome, where you're afraid of standing a little bit taller than others. You're afraid of sharing maybe some success or some knowledge because you're worried that you're going to be chopped down. That was really noticeable when I moved here, and I hate it. I don't have any time for it. And I think it really stops a lot of creative and a lot of ambitious people from doing something for themselves and for the greater community. I can't stand it. And it's something I've stood firmly against from day one. I'm going to be a lifelong student. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but if I'm good at something, you're going to know about it. And I'm going to continue getting better at it because I don't really care what you think. I care about what the person watching my content is. And I think something that I've really resonated with and something that's helped me is sometimes you just have to back yourself into a really deep corner. And sometimes you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, and truly believe that no one's actually thinking about you. Maybe for a blip in their day, a moment in their day, but we are so self-involved. We all have such busy lives. No one's thinking about you 24/7 of their time. So if you're scared, if you're embarrassed, if you're nervous, you just got to do it anyway. Do it scared, do it nervous, do it at the risk of feeling silly. One of my favorite quotes that I live by is like, if you're going to miss the bus running. If you know that you're meant to do something, if you know that you want to bring more positivity to this world, and maybe it's a bit taboo, you need to do it because I'd much rather do it now than look back when I'm 50 and realize one, no one was thinking about me anyway. No one cared. Everyone's self-involved. Why didn't I just do it? That's a lot easier said than done. And I appreciate that. And I think what's helped me get to that stage is, yeah, I moved here by myself. I didn't know anyone. And I know people do that. And I know people come from war-torn countries. I'm not saying, oh, Eric, you're so amazing. But when you do things that push the comfort zone, that becomes a lot easier for you to do. Something as what might sound crazy as posting a video on YouTube is a lot more minor. I'm so over at that stage. I'm so over my head in debt. I barely know anyone here in Australia. Who cares? And just doing it and doing more of those things that really challenge you and not caring what people think and understanding that this whole tall poppy syndrome, it's going to keep me very confined. And those people that I'm worried about being confined by are never going to support me anyway. They're never going to buy anything from me. They're never going to share any of my posts. So F it. What do I have to lose? Nothing. Sorry, I
I
get a little
think,
passionate. I get a little passionate
Yeah,
there,
no,
Ben.
I
But
love
oh,
it.
we love
Thank
it. I
you.
mean, Bowie and I could not say that any better ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, what a beautiful way to finish up on what let's hope is our further conversations down the track. I mean, I think we've only just chipped off the top of the iceberg there, Eric.
I agree because I want listeners understanding that when you're finishing your physio degree, everyone's asking, what stream are you going to? Cardio, neuro, muscle? Are you going to go into private practice? Are you going to go hospital, the 9 to 5 route? It's really stressful. And I saw a lot of my colleagues going and trying to start Instagram pages and LinkedIn pages. And I love all that. But I find if it doesn't work right away for people, they just stop. You're like, no. It took me a year. It took me a year of just my dad and my mom and my wife watching my videos. It takes so much time. And I think living in this age of social media, everything gets glamorized. It comes across as this happens for people a lot quicker. So if it doesn't happen overnight for you, you're a failure. And you can look at someone that has 450,000 subscribers. I'm like, oh yeah, that was an overnight. No, I've been doing this for 3 years. I have no other option. You can go on some of my videos. Some of them have over 2 million views. And then I've got some that have 4,000. So that doesn't really make sense when you have over 450,000 subscribers. So you get punched in the face a lot. I don't attach my self-worth to any of that. And that's something that I'm hoping is coming across to anyone listening is that if you're passionate about talking about something and making a difference, you need to do it.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Eric. Like it's, on not only this conversation has just been fantastic to talk to you about your journey and your insights to it, but it's just also really lovely to know that we have physios out there that are leading a positive fight. And I think whilst there might be the minority, a small minority that finds what you're doing uncomfortable, I think the majority are very thankful for you continually pushing the boundaries and making sure we're at the forefront of supporting and caring for our patients and caring for ourselves as well. I think that message came through very clearly here, that you have had a lot of compassion and grace for your own journey. And that's what we want to make sure we share with all our physios that are coming through, that there's hard days, but there's also a very important thing that you're doing. And we need to, I think, remind ourselves of that. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ben.
Eric.
Thank you, Karen. Also, if anyone has any questions, I don't have all the answers, but if you wanted to talk more about this, please feel free. You can email me. My email is eric@keepgoing.au. I get random emails all the time, and I'm more than happy to help anyone. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Generous to the end. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Wow. Awesome. It's just really lovely just to have a listen to Eric and all the various different experiences that he's had, but particularly as well, just taking on new projects, YouTube, just putting things out there and not being shy to try things with the very real possibility that stuff could fail, and just to have the guts to go forward with it is really, I guess, inspiring to listen to as a physio and blazing a new path. So loved having a listen to it, Eric.
He's really the cover boy for persistence and determination, isn't he? It's amazing what he's achieved, and he just kept going until he made things successful. Very impressive.
Yeah.
Now, something that we do love to do, Bowie, here at the Off-Script Physio podcast is to make a donation on behalf of our guests to a charity of their choosing. This is a little way that we can thank our guests for their time, but also pay things forward a little. And so Eric has chosen to donate to Movember, a charity that exists to help men live happier, healthier, longer lives. And you'll find the link in our show notes. We'll see you next week.